devotion, and it's this ability to um, persevere specifically through hard patches, through trouble, through hardship, through scary things, through risk. So this ability in our heart to do these journeys. And we need courage in our faith. If you know anything about Jesus, it's not a very kind of boring ride in life when you're following Jesus or seeking Jesus or being part of his mission. It's incredibly adventurous and risky and just downright scary at times. And so courage is needed. And we've just looked at these three areas of our faith, of outworking our faith. Courage in our worship, that God is just incredible. You know, it is so necessary for us to remember the awesomeness of God daily. That how he is just beyond us, how he is the creator of everything, of all of this complex and beautiful creation, how he has come to us and what he has done for us, and to worship him with all of our lives. And that requires courage. You know, and we can ask ourselves, what does it look like in my daily life to courageously worship, to offer my heart and mind, my body and soul unto God for his glory each day. And courage then also in being family. Because as we know, the people we do life most closely with in our homes, in our extended whānau, in our church whānau, these are the people that we do most of life with, and we get the blessing of being able to serve one another, of being able to cheer one another on, encourage one another, support one another, and we get the experience of one another's brokenness and sin and the times when we say things that hurt and do things that aren't great. And we get the whole mix in our closest relationships. And so it requires courage to journey well in these relationships with Jesus, doesn't it? To continue to trust Jesus and to build trust among ourselves, to continue to show up in honesty, in loving honesty, and to grow and learn with Jesus. And so being family, we ask ourselves, how am I being faithful unto Jesus in my closest relationships? And then today we look beyond those relationships to the people who are strange to us. Because always in life there are going to be those who we're familiar with, those who we naturally resonate with and understand, and those in life who are foreign to us, who we don't understand. People around us in our communities, and just everywhere, and each day in our workplaces, just everywhere, who we find strange. We don't naturally resonate, maybe, and perhaps even because of stereotypes or experiences, perhaps even people who push our buttons, or we feel a bit threatened by, or a bit guarded towards. And so there's these types of people around us, and Paul in Romans 12, he spends a whole lot of Romans talking about the nitty-gritty of faith and of our Christian faith. And in Romans 12, he gets to this point where he starts to really say, what does that look like? What does our faith look like in everyday life? What does love look like? And he starts to describe how we love and how we outwork our faith. And he speaks earlier in Romans 12 about offering our lives as living sacrifices in worship. He speaks then about us as the body, and he speaks about being family together. And then he comes to this point where in verse 13, he talks about extending hospitality to the stranger. And it's this outward showing, because always as we are connecting with God and receiving from him and spilling that out, hopefully into our close relationships, we're also looking further afield to extend the generosity of God, extend the love of God out to those who are not as close and those who are more foreign to us. And he goes through a number of descriptors in those verses, because it's not always easy to love the person that we don't understand, and it is risky. And there's a whole lot of things that we can feel around not really knowing how to to serve someone wisely, or to be understood by someone when we maybe don't even speak their language, or we don't relate to their upbringing or their way of being, or even their vocation, or there's personalities that we just have no idea how to connect with. And so Paul talks about this expression of love that is, and he uses words like outdoing one another, being an example. He's very much on the front foot of, there's no kind of self-protection and hesitancy here. He's talking about exempling, honoring. He's talking about having that being ardent in spirit, being courageous and zealous, having a passion and a purpose for reaching out. He is talking about when it gets tough, when people persecute you, when people cuss at you or curse you or get upset with you, blessing them. He is talking about being alongside people where they're at, not necessarily where we're at in any day of week, but paying attention when they are weeping. How can I be with them in that? When they're celebrating, how can I be with them in that? And just to associate with the lowly, to make sure that we're not thinking, and this especially applies when we come to people who are very different to us, that we don't think that I'm here to teach you. I'm the right one and you need all the help. Because that's not Jesus. That's not how Jesus came to us. He came lowly. He came trusting. He came vulnerable. And there's many ways in which Paul really, really challenges us to step outside of our comfort zone and get out into the hard spaces, into the uncomfortable spaces with people who are not always going to treat us nicely, who we're not always going to understand, where it's not always going to be easy, but we're not to do any of this in our own kind of understanding, in our own wisdom, in our own, with our own judgments. We're not to go and, repay evil for evil. We're not to go and take vengeance. We're to journey with God and allow God to be in the midst of those relationships, in the midst of where we are wanting to serve someone and we're learning and we're growing. And God is there in the midst, and he is the one bringing judgment according to his understanding. And just before we look further at that, there's because this whole passage really speaks of the essence of agape love, of that love of Jesus, and the fact that for good to overcome evil, for the gospel of God, for the love of God to be shown, we are not to be taking matters into our own hands. But that is so often our default, isn't it? And kind of maybe expressed in a variety of ways, but a couple of general ways in which when we get a person in front of us who is more strange to us, we're not understanding them easily, or we're feeling a bit unnerved, or a bit vulnerable, or it feels a bit risky to offer them love or serve them. We might tend to go in with our own, I need to do this for God, and I'm going to go in with kind of the way I need to do it, and my wisdom and my understanding, and we go bullheaded into a situation without listening to the promptings of Jesus, and we get hurt, and then we react the other way, and we say, well, this is why I shouldn't be off doing that, or we self-protect, and it's so easy to just make excuses to just, why we shouldn't be doing that type of ministry, or we shouldn't be extending quite that much, towards this person or that person in our life. And we have enough going on, and we have enough with our own family, or enough with our own ministries, and just this other person who's God's put in front of us, that's just a little bit too much and a little bit too risky. And I've been hurt before. And so we can kind of swing these two ways. I know I can, when I'm not following God into this. And I think there's a challenge here from Paul. There's a challenge here from Jesus to extend generosity in a courageous way, in a very real way from our hearts, not as a token act, but in a very real way of sharing the love that God has given us. But it must be done following Jesus into those situations, following the promptings of his Spirit as he puts someone in our path, as he puts someone on our heart, or invites us to connect with someone who we wouldn't usually, invites us to give them a call, or say hi, or help them out with something, or invites us to begin to learn how to serve someone, or how to journey with someone who we're not naturally comfortable with. And he invites us to trust him in that. Even though it's risky for our heart, even though we may get hurt, there may be misunderstandings, there may be, challenges to the relationship, or to the way that we are serving them. But there's this beautiful Māori word and concept, manaakitanga, of showing hospitality, of uplifting the mana of one another. And there's this incredible way that we are able to journey with people. And when Jesus is in the midst, when he's leading us into extending our hearts in that way, he is there, and he fully understands the person in front of us. He understands their strengths and weaknesses. He fully understands us and our strengths and weaknesses. And he is there, and he is able to bring good in that. He is able to bless that person, to uplift their mana with our small, fragile, imperfect part. And he's able to teach us and hold us and guard us in the journey. And so that we're able to be on the front foot, as Paul says, in zeal and courage, looking to God for the ways in which he is inviting us to show hospitality to the stranger. Because as we have already received, as we kind of can remember, God is wholly other himself. We were once strangers. God is incredibly strange to us, isn't he? He is completely good, completely true, completely faithful. He is immortal, invisible, eternal, uncreated, the Father of all. He is all-knowing and all-powerful. He is strange to us. He is other. And we, in our brokenness, have been entirely strange and separated from him. And he has come to our lowly place to show hospitality to us. He has come to us not in power and domination and I'm going to speak from up here to you lowly broken ones. He's come as a baby. Jesus, fully God, become fully man and made himself completely vulnerable. Come in a way of trust, in a way of risking his heart, making his heart vulnerable to us and doing learning, growing journeys with us in this life, and extended the most generous hospitality to us, bringing us home. And so with that has been given to us, I think Jesus and Paul, through his words, encourages us today to reach out to those around us, to ask God this week, who is the person that you're putting in front of me? And how are you leading me to uplift their mana, to be generous in the way that I offer love and journey with them and serve them, and to listen to your wisdom, Jesus, and how I do it. Not to take matters into my own hands in self-protection or in judgments or in just thinking I need to go and do all sorts of stuff to be good, but just in the small, gentle, ordinary ways of getting alongside people in life, to be willing to risk our hearts, to be willing to trust Jesus in that space and learn in the journey with him, knowing that he will do something and he will continue to bring us, to hold us as his kids, and to bring children home in those journeys. And so, just as we head into our time of communion soon and in the rest of the service, let's ask God, what does that look like for me? And let's ask God to help us hear his promptings as he puts those people in our path and helps us to see past stereotypes or past our own fears and take courage to walk with them.